This is Killer Innovations, a show about ideas, creativity, and how you can innovate. Welcome to the Innovator's Garage, where you learn to create your next game-changing killer innovation.
Hello and welcome to Killer Innovations. I'm your host, Phil McKinney. This week, we're going to talk about the creative mind and how do you feed it. We all need feeding of our creative mind. It's just like our bodies, right? We're not going to last very long if you don't eat regular meals and feed your body. We need to find ways to feed our creative mind. Now, after we get out of school, some people actually stop learning. They have this kind of opinion that what they do is they'll get on-the-job training, that their mind will get fed, they will learn new skills purely by somebody else initiating it, your boss, your company that you work for, or whatever. Now, it's kind of a I'll wait until it comes to me kind of a mentality, and that is not me at all. In my opinion, that's 100% the wrong approach. You need to be diligent about lifelong learning. And you need to get diligent about feeding yours, mind, all of our creative minds. So what are the ways you can feed your creative mind? I'm going to run through a list of 15 ways that you can feed your creative mind. Now, if you're driving in your car or you're out walking and you've got your earbuds in or you're on the treadmill at the gym, don't worry about having to write all these down. You can just go over to killerinnovations.com, look up the show notes for today's show. I'll have all 15 listed there, and you can come back and listen to the descriptions around each one later. But let's walk through the 15 that I think are the best ways to feed your creative mind, to keep your mind fed such that it can produce the creativity when you need it. So, number one, help one person today. Now, you're going to sit here and go, okay, Phil's like off his rocker now. But in reality, by going out and setting the objective of helping one person, helping that person by sharing your knowledge, your expertise, going out and helping somebody solve a problem, it's that outward action of doing something that gets you kind of in that mental mode, gets the creative muscle even just started because you're trying to help somebody else solve a problem or help somebody else do something, and it's causing you to be engaged. Now, I'm a Boy Scout. I'm an Eagle Scout. And in Boy Scouts, you're taught that you have to do a good turn daily. Now, when I was a little Cub Scout, 8 years old, you got this little Bobcat pin, and you had to keep the Bobcat pin upside down until you did your good turn. Once you did your good turn, then you could turn your Bobcat pin right side up. And let me tell you, as a little 8-year-old, that was a huge motivator. So for me, it was just something that I got used to. In the case here at the podcast and the radio show, it's around what I call pay it forward. You know, we all get blessed with mentors and people who've invested time and energy into our respective careers. In many cases, you've been given a lot of support. Share it. Help somebody else. Pass it along. So number one, help a person. Help one person today solve a problem. Number two, protect your time. You only get 1,440 minutes a day. 1,440 is all you get. Now, you subtract 480 minutes, assuming you're going to sleep for 8 hours, you're down to 960 minutes. We all start with the same amount of time. You can't preserve it, you can't save it, but you have to spend all of it before the end of the day. Are you letting others steal from your 1,440? Time is your most valuable resource for feeding your creative mind and exercising that creative muscle, which we talked in a previous show. So what are you doing with your 1,440? Protect that time. Number three, write something. Write anything daily. Now, to write, you need to think up new ideas to write about. So it actually exercises and feeds that creative mind. It forces you to clarify your thoughts and your thinking. Now, one suggestion that I have, that this is how I got started way back in the late 90s when I first started philmckinney.com, the blog, was the fact that I used to use that as kind of my public journal. I would go ahead and write things in that blog, and it was sometimes stupid stuff. It was stuff about my family. It was stuff about things that, that I was mad or upset about or whatever. I'd get on a rant, but just purely the exercise of writing. And what I have found is me physically writing it out on paper first before typing it also helps. I don't know what it is about that physical process of pen to paper helps reinforce it and really stick to my mind as to what it is that I'm writing or ranting about. And I can't underemphasize how important it is to do this writing on a daily basis. Whether it's just notes from what happened today, you do it as a personal journal, you have an idea notebook. In a previous show, I shared about how I exercise the muscle by actually causing myself to work on a very specific problem 30 minutes a day in the morning. And I use that as my writing exercise to feed my creative mind from the standpoint of that physical process of actually writing out my ideas and putting them into the notebook. Now, number 4, read from a physical book daily. Now, reading just feeds the mind. It's that input. It's new information. It's, the vision of a future if you read science fiction like I do. Whatever that is, it's that input. It's the thing that your mind, your subconscious is going to use to create new ideas. Now, why is that? Well, when you're reading a book, your mind has to engage. It actually has to take those words and it's painting that mental picture. Now, I know for many of us, we read books and then we see the movies come out and the movies never match what was in our head. Well, that's part of the process that causes our creative mind to be, fed by the fact that we put in these words from a story and our mind has to click in order to paint that picture. Now, why do I emphasize physical books over, reading it on a Kindle or whatever? There's a study that shows that reading electronically on a Kindle or an iPad or any other kind of, electronic device actually triggers a different part of the brain. Reading electronically triggers nonlinear thinking, which causes us to skim or scan. Our brain is trained when we're reading electronically, it's quick, nugget. We've trained our brain to think of it as short snacking kind of a process. Physical reading triggers a different part of the brain. It triggers deep concentration, and you actually retain the information better. Don't ask me why. I'm just reporting the study, but it says that reading from a physical book triggers that deep concentration, better retention, more impactful input than we get from reading electronically. So you can take it for what it's worth. But in fact, I actually do practice reading a physical book. Now, at any given time, I'm reading up to 3 books at a time. So I'm a little bit of my ADHD kicks in and I get bored with a book. I'll switch to another one and then eventually come back to the first book. So again, let's walk through just the first 4 again. Help one person today. So go out, help someone solve a problem, help them think of a solution. Number 2, protect your time. 1440, we all have the exact same. Do you use your 1440 better than everybody else around? Number 3, write something daily. Write anything. You could be just garbly-gook at first. Just sit down, and it's that repeated process of coming up with those new ideas that will help you feed that creative mind. And then number 4, read from a physical book daily. Not electronic book, but read from a physical book. That physical book reading, holding the book in your hand, flipping the pages, the paper. Our brain has been trained to go into a deeper mode of concentration, not to skim, but to actually get ourselves absorbed into the material that we're reading. And it just has a different impact on our brain than reading electronically. So those are the first 4. We have 11 more to go. We're going to continue to cover those other ones as we continue on in the show today. And as I mentioned, I will have all 15 listed on the show. So you want to go over to killerinnovations.com and look up for the show notes for today's show. And we will have all 15 listed out. And you can come back and listen to the show, or you can subscribe on iTunes or Google Play or wherever you find your podcasts, and listen to the show over and over and over again. So again, we've covered the first 4. We've got 11 to go. We're going to be right back after this short commercial break. Don't go anywhere. You're listening to Killer Innovations on the BizTalk Radio Network.
This is Killer Innovations, a show about ideas, creativity, and how you can innovate. Welcome to the Innovator's Garage, where you learn to create your next game-changing killer innovation.
Welcome back to Killer Innovations. I'm your host, Phil McKinney. We're walking through the 15 ways to feed your creative mind. And let's pick up where we left off. Number 5, have a good conversation daily. Creativity is triggered by interaction with other people. You hear about their experiences, what they're working on, areas of expertise, and it's the meeting of the minds that really is a feeder for your creativity. Deep, meaningful conversations forces you to rethink your assumptions and to be open to others' ideas. Needless to say, in today's world, we need to be less polarized and more open to at least have deep, meaningful conversations. Now, there's a couple ways to do this. I've been part of what's called Jefferson dinners. You can look it up online. I'll put a link in the show notes. But a Jefferson dinner is someone hosting a dinner party at their house, gets everybody around the table. You pick one topic, and it's one conversation. It's not everybody talking to their neighbor, trying to talk across the table, and you just get this low rumble. You pick one topic, one conversation. And it turns into pretty deep, meaningful, right? It could be, you're just trying to talk about, different experiences. I've been part of Jefferson dinners talking about education, talking about government policy, talking about clean air, clean water. What I have found in these Jefferson dinners, though, is something that is very, very meaningful from being able to have those kinds of deep conversations with people that you just normally don't interact with. The other option is the 17th and 18th century, what I call salons. And salons are, in this case, people sitting around the living room. And this used to be quite common where musicians would come in and leading thinkers of the day. This was the 17th and 18th century. And this was kind of the way that people shared knowledge or had conversations or kind of threw out a new idea and looked for people to actually help improve it or rebut it or get into maybe even an argument every once in a while. But it's this kind of having a good conversation daily is this process of triggering the creativity that comes from interacting with other people. Number 6, go for a walk daily. Now, Stephen King, Ernest Hemingway, Thomas Jefferson, Ralph Waldo Emerson, all were big walkers. If you go and you read their biographies, they talk about the fact that when they got stuck, they would go do a walk. There used to be this saying that it says, it is solved by walking. Now, in fact, Stephen King had this habit where he would write in the morning, and then in the afternoon he would walk. But when he would walk, he was actually literally reading a book while he walked. And if you read his book called On Writing, which is his nonfiction book about the writing process that he uses to create all of his novels, he tells the story of the accident when he's walking along the side of the road. He's reading a book. A woman in a van swerves, hits him, nearly kills him, spends a lot of time in the hospital, took a lot of time for him to get recovery from that. But it was literally this walking while with his head down reading this book when he was hit by this person driving the van. I wouldn't use that to discourage you, but walking, it's the process of movement, I think, of getting out there and walking and thinking about what it is that you're noodling around in your head, or just letting your brain wander There's something about the movement and getting your brain engaged that I have found just to be incredibly, incredibly helpful. The other is taking in inspiration daily. So inspiration can be things like visual, photographs, paintings. If you ever walk into an office, home office, or work office, or cube of people that are highly creative, their walls tend to be covered with pictures. And I'm not talking about just pictures of their family, their kids, whatever, but it's really around pictures that inspire them. Picture mountains, pictures maybe, space exploration, or pictures of whatever. But they use pictures as kind of that inspiration. When they can sit back and look at the walls, that visual input is inspiring for them. Your inspiration could also be audio. So that could be music. It could be podcasts. It could be other audio, motivational audio from, an Earl Nightingale or Tony Robbins or any of those speakers that are out there. Audio is another way to take in kind of that inspiring. The other is the one that I think we tend to overlook is physical. Now, for me, physical would be something like dancing, getting out, interacting with somebody, your spouse, your significant other, boyfriend, girlfriend, but actually engaging, having that physical contact, the rhythmic of moving your legs in a certain pattern is another way. I won't admit to my wife how many times I've actually gotten absolutely great ideas while dancing with her. So it's one of those things. She tends to think I don't like to dance, but I actually do like to dance. We just don't have much of an opportunity anymore to do it as much as we did when we were younger. But it's one that I think is overlooked. So take in inspiration daily. Find out whatever inspires you, visually, audio, physical, tactical, something you touch. Find that. And then the other is ask yourself a daily question. Questions cause our minds to work at solving questions. We just can't help ourselves, right? It's the whole premise, of my book around killer questions. Questions that cause you to come up with ideas that are far above and beyond the normal ideas that everybody else comes up with. How do you create those kinds of questions? And I break them down really into two categories. One is ask uplifting questions, right? So start your morning asking yourself an uplifting question like, what am I most happy about in my life, right? Hop out of bed, ask yourself that question, quickly answer it from the standpoint of this morning, what is it I am most happy about? In my case, my grandkids. No, there's nothing that comes in at the top. My wife and my grandkids are right there. And having a picture to see them, because that just starts my day off. It starts my day off in a very positive tone. I'm ready to go really solve the problems because I know, hey, life is good and anything I do now is gravy on top. The other is ask your questions to challenge your assumptions. We all get in ruts. So what's the question we could ask ourselves that would cause us to then look at and thoroughly think about, challenging our own things that we just think we know internally, we just know it as a rule, or I know the answer to this because of my experience. Find questions that causes us to challenge the assumption. So for instance, if you've taken a certain position on a topic in the press or in the media, ask yourself just for today, what if I took the opposite position? What does it change in what you observe in the world or how you interact with people if you just took the complete counter position to what you normally believe just for the day and see where that goes? So try that out and tell me how that works for you. So we're going to come right back. We've covered up through the first 8. We're going to go through all 15 through the remaining part of the show, so don't go anywhere. You're listening to Killer Innovations on the BizTalk Radio Network.
This is Killer Innovations, a show about ideas, creativity, and how you can innovate. Welcome to the Innovator's Garage, where you learn to create your next game-changing killer innovation.
Welcome back to Killer Innovations. I'm your host, Phil McKinney. Let's pick up right where we left off, talking about the 15 ways to feed your creative mind. So picking up number 9, stop comparing yourself. Now, we all tend to try to fall into the trap of comparing ourselves with the Joneses. Hey, they got a new car, I don't. They got a bigger house, I have a smaller house. I do the same job as him, but he's getting paid more salary than I do. We're all into getting caught in this trap of comparing ourselves. Keeping up with the Joneses is not creative. It's conformity. Now, in a previous podcast, I shared a speech that I gave recently where I talked about the fact that the opposite of bravery is not cowardice. The opposite of bravery is conformity. In innovation, you have to be brave. To be creative, you have to be brave. You got to take risks. You got to put your ideas out there for other people to either like, love, criticize, or kill. So you have to be brave. You got to be willing to stand up and put those ideas out there. But spending a lot of time doing this comparison, they're thinner than me, they're prettier than me, they're taller than me, they're smarter than me, is just a total waste of time. Be brave and let go of what others think or do. It's not about conformity, it's about bravery. Comparing just takes time and energy away from your other activities. Remember, you only have 1,440 minutes. How much of those minutes are you using comparing yourself to somebody else? If you're using any amount of time, that's time wasted because it'll add nothing to your creative ability. So again, number 9, stop comparing yourself. And believe me, I still do it. We all do it. But we have to get in the habit of, as soon as we start to fall into that trap, catching ourselves and saying, no. I'm not going to waste my valuable 1440 on comparison. Number 10, reprogram your information input. We all get a lot of information input, right? We all subscribe to way more newsletters than we could ever read. We all subscribe to way more podcasts than we could ever listen to. Magazines, online newspapers, books we buy at the bookstore, right? And we got them stacking up around us because sometimes I think makes us feel better, like we're doing the right thing, we're taking all this input. But unless you actually read it, it's of no value. The key point here, though, is not that you want to cut back on the volume. What I would say is cut out the negative or cynical thinking. Now, there's a lot of it out there, right? Depending on where you live in the world, the press just loves to bring up the negative, right? Whether it's politics or business leaders who, get caught up in, their egos and do bad things, politicians doing bad things, cynical on the future of the world. What I would say is go through your information input and cut out the negative or cynical thinking. You can't cut it all out because you don't want to be Pollyannic and just stick your head in the sand. But at the same time, if more than 50% of your news input is negative or cynical, it's going to bring you down. You're not going to have that ability to be creative because you're just going to get into this, this negativity that just kind of turns into a death spiral. The other piece is reduce your intake. You don't need as much input, right? Look, how many times did the same article appear in 5 online magazines, right? You don't need to read 20 tech blogs because they're all going to cover the same thing eventually, right? So again, reduce that input and add positive information. We need motivation. When you're in the innovation and creative game, there's enough negativity when people attack your ideas, when the antibodies come out and tell you that, oh, your idea is stupid, it's never going to work, or you're never going to get that funding, it's a waste of time, right? We have to deal with that negativity. So you need some motivation. You need some positive input. Find people who write in a way that helps teach you, helps motivate you. It could be, Tim Ferriss, Tony Robbins, whoever you find out there that is going to help lift you up, get you motivated, build that confidence in yourself to go off and do what it is you want to go do. And then be selective on what kind of information, right? We take out the negative, we take out the cynical, we reduce your intake, we add positive information, but you also want to be selective because it has a huge influence. What you read and from what writers and from what newspapers says a lot about you, right? So, for instance, if you read the New York Times, you might be of one political persuasion. If you read the Washington Times out of Washington, D.C., you're going to be in an opposite political. So what you read, it gets a little bit to be like an echo chamber. Do you read the newspapers and the information from people who have an opposite opinion of you? Again, stay away from the negative and cynical, but it gives you additional input. We're talking about how do you feed your creative mind? And if you fall into a rut of only reading people who believe the exact same things you believe, that's a rut. You need to get out of that rut. So be selective of the information because it does have a big influence on you. Number 11, tell stories. Stories like writing. Earlier in the list, we talk about writing daily. In this case, tell stories. Practice creating and telling imaginative, creative stories. People love to listen to stories, and great storytellers can be very inspirational, very motivational, and just fun. So practice. Actually tell stories. Tell stories about your childhood. Tell stories about something that happened to you at work. Tell stories that you think convey a message that you want other people to internalize. Storytelling is just an absolutely great creative outlet. Now, there's variations to storytelling. I love comedy and I love improv comedy. And improv comedy is another example of storytelling, but what's different in improv is there's no preparation. You have to do it on the fly, really getting your brains, your neurons engaged. You've got to be highly creative. If you haven't taken an improv class, take one. And there's actually a blog post over at philmckinney.com where I talk about improv creativity, how improv actually can impact your creative output. And number 12, try something new. So expand your interests. Try a new hobby as an example. Move to a completely different industry in some cases. And I've done that. Now, I've done that 5 times over my career where I moved completely into new industries that I just had no relationship with, had no involvement with, and just went off and did something completely different. And I can tell you that it is stressful from the standpoint of you need to go learn, what that is. So again, try something new. So let's quickly go through the list where we're at so far. Number 1 was help one person today. Number 2, protect your time. You only have 1440. Number 3, write something, anything daily. Number 4, read from a physical book daily. Number 5, have a great conversation daily. Number 6, go for a walk. Number 7, take in inspiration daily, whether it's visual, audio, physical. Number 8, ask yourself a daily question. Number 9, stop comparing yourself. Number 10, reprogram your information input. Number 11, tell stories. And number 12, try something new. So we have 3 left on our list, which we will cover in the last segment of the show. And that will give you the entire list of 15. And remember, I am going to post the entire list of all 15 over at the show notes over at killerinnovations.com. So you don't need to worry about it. If you're driving the car, please don't try to take notes. If you're out riding your bicycle, don't try to take notes. Don't worry about it. I'm going to post them all up there on the Killer Innovation site. You can read them. You can comment on them. You can tell me which ones I got wrong. And you can also tell me which ones I'm missing, which ones you would add to the list. So again, go over and visit the site, killerinnovations.com. We'll be right back after this short commercial break. 3 of the 15 ways to feed your creative mind. You're listening to Killer Innovations on the BizTalk Radio Network, and we're going to be right back after this short commercial break.
This is Killer Innovations, a show about ideas, creativity, and how you can innovate. Welcome to the Innovator's Garage, where you learn to create your next game-changing killer innovation.
Welcome back to Killer Innovations. I'm your host, Phil McKinney. We are discussing the 15 ways to feed your creative mind. The mind, like every other part of our body, needs to be fed. Whether we consume food to give ourselves energy, we need to find the right food that feeds that creative mind. And we've been talking through the first 12. Picking up at number 13, spend time with highly creative people. We all know them. We know them in school. We know them at work. We know them in the outside organizations that we're part of. Find people who are highly creative and hang out with them. That energy that they have, where they've kind of gone through the hoops and maybe have maybe more creative confidence to share their ideas, to show what they're working on, can be very inspirational. Now, if you can't do it in person, you can do it online, right? There are highly creative people that you can find online and be inspired by them. There's a number. You can go over to Creative Live. Chase Jarvis is over there. He produces videos that I just love. He's a photographer, but now he is one of the founders of Creative Live, which is a site where you can go on, and they're just highly, highly creative people there. They show their work. They teach how they do their work. I just find it hugely, hugely inspirational. And what I find is just that their energy is contagious. They are excited about doing something new or trying something. In some cases, they can show their failures, something they tried that just didn't work out. So again, spend time with highly creative people. In my case, one of the things that I do is I hang out with interns. The young, they're in college, probably junior, senior year in college, or maybe post-grad. They're all excited. They think they know everything. They're going to solve, all the problems when they come in. But it's that energy that I just love. And it used to be back when I was in California that I actually would pick 2 interns to actually live with me at my house in California. So CTO of HP, 2 interns. We'd probably have 225 interns a summer come in to California to work with us. And I would pick 2, and they actually live with me. And I did that as kind of a reverse mentoring. So yes, I was much older, more experienced, had some career success. Typically you think of me mentoring them, but in this case, I was using it as reverse mentoring, finding somebody that's got that energy, that excitement, and then actually having them, and not in a formal mentoring process, but just feeding off of that energy and that excitement. Number 14, practice deliberate thinking. We just don't spend enough time just quiet, sitting down, turning off the TV, taking the earbuds out of our ears, not doing anything, just sitting there quietly, letting our mind take over, letting our thinking take over. Now, in some cases, we have to remove the blocks. We have to get rid of our to-do lists. In my case, I like to write them down on a piece of paper. I'm more of an index card kind of a guy. Because once I write them down, then I can take it off my brain. I don't have to remember it anymore because I've got it written down. You have to kind of get rid of that mental block of the things that you're trying to remember to do. And I find that writing it down is a huge help. The other is you got to get rid of the stress and worry. You've got to get rid of that stress, because even if you're sitting there quietly, your brain will just constantly dwell on the stress and the worry. You've got to find a way to kind of put that away, put it in a closet in your head, park it someplace so that you can just let your brain just wander, just to think, just to relax, not to worry about anything else. And number 15, and this is one that I am going to bet you would have never thought of, and that is put the bottle down. Right? There tends to be in this culture people that like to come home and have a couple drinks, in the creative world, what you find is alcohol is not your friend. While alcohol relaxes, it is also a depressant. And too much of it will suppress your creativity. Right? We talk about, okay, I'm going to have a couple of drinks in order to have to get some confidence. It isn't confidence. It's actually dulling your senses. Right? Now, one glass of wine is fine, but then put the bottle away. Now, I didn't come up with this idea. This one's been out in the creativity world for quite some time. It is one that I think more people should listen to and take part of. So let's run through the list one more time so that you've got the entire list. Number 1, help one person today. So pay it forward. Protect your time. You only got 1440. How are you using those? Write something, anything daily is number 3. Number 4 is read from a physical book every day. Number 5, have a good conversation daily. Number 6, go for a walk. Don't repeat a Stephen King car accident, but get out there and walk every day. Number 7, take in inspiration daily, whether it's visual, audio, physical. Number 8, ask yourself a daily question. Number 9, stop comparing yourself. Number 10, reprogram your input, your information input. Get rid of the negative and cynical. Number 11, tell stories. Number 12, try something new. Expand your interest. Try a new hobby. Number 13, spend time with highly creative people. Number 14, practice deliberate thinking. Take a breather. Unplug. Take your earbuds out. And number 15, put the bottle down. You want all of your senses to be sharp. You want all of that input to be available to you. I hope you found this useful. Let me know. Hop on over to killinnovations.com. We'll have all the show notes up there so you can grab down the entire list of 15 and you can share it with your friends or your teammates. I'd love to hear your feedback. What did I miss? Which ones you would add to that list? And with that, I'm going to say thanks for taking the time out of your schedule to listen. Love to hear your feedback. Phil@killinnovations.com. And with that, we'll talk to you next week. Bye-bye.
Autism. 1 out of every 68 children in America are impacted across every race, ethnicity, and socioeconomic group. If you aren't directly affected, someone you know is. Today's world doesn't support those on the autism spectrum. It needs hacking for us to truly welcome those who think and create differently than ourselves. We're Hacking Autism, a nonprofit charity with a mission to hack therapy, technologies, and career opportunities that improve the personal and professional lives of people on the autism spectrum. We believe that everyone can play a role in supporting those on the autism spectrum so that they can show their unique talents and abilities in this fast-paced world. You aren't powerless in this fight. Use your gifts and talents to make a positive impact. Join us in making a difference. Go to hackingautism.org to learn more.
Carpenters have their hammers and saws, chefs have their outfitted kitchens, and musicians have their instruments. A craftsman's ability to do their job is dependent on having the right tools. So where does an innovator, someone who takes an idea and makes it real, find the right tools to do their job? Outfit your innovator's garage by visiting innovation.tools. Innovation.tools is an online store created by innovators for innovators. It's where you will find tested and proven tools to help you create that next great product or service. These tools include books, audio training, video training, brainstorming how-tos, and much, much more. And for a limited time, listeners of Killer Innovations will get 25% off on your first order by using the discount code RADIO at checkout. And 100% of our profits from your purchases will be donated to charity. So go to innovation.tools and create that next great innovation.
Rwanda is a shining example of how the global community can come together and rebuild a country after a devastating genocide. But there is still more that needs to be done. In the rural villages, students are crowded into schools with no electricity, no running water, no internet access, and limited sanitation. Will these kids be ready to continue the rebuilding of Rwanda, or will they be dependent upon others? Through education and employment, boys and girls have an equally promising future that can transform their struggling communities. For $20 a month, a child can be educated and a community strengthened. By supporting Pioneer Education Africa, a 501c3 charity, you partner with others to provide education that will prepare a generation to take on the task of self-reliance. 100% of the proceeds received go directly to the education of the children. Visit pioneereducationafrica.com to find out more.